A slap to your side, a push on my foolish pride. I'm out of my mind. I'm down from the endless high. Don't know who's losing, who's bruising, who's choosing to stick it through. So we fight with fire.
Hey everyone, happy Monday. I'm back. I'm going to be doing these every single Monday at 9 o'clock. I know I'm a little bit late. I had some union business. I am, for those that don't know, I'm the secretary and the treasurer of the first federally recognized union, a Adult Performers Actors Guild. So yeah, we had some union issues, and now I'm on air. Keep in mind, guys, you guys can join the chat room and you can sit there and talk to each other too. It's free to sign up, and there's a live chat in my radio show so I can see what you're saying so we can communicate with each other. It's kind of awesome. Yeah. So tonight we're going to be talking about politics, a lot of politics, not just Washington politics, but also LGBTQ issues, woman-man issues, trans versus women, men versus women, and lots of other political type issues that we're going to be talking about. But I also want to take a moment to remember the Holocaust survivors, as well as those that have, the 6 million that were eradicated due to prejudice, due to hate. We have to make sure that we're committed to fight prejudice, to fight this type of hate that goes on. It just seems to be, it seems to keep on, bringing its ugly head, partly because of religion, partly because of some people are just evil. We have Yemen right now where, there's basically they're just killing Yemens left and right. It's basically the Yemen Holocaust, I would say. And all over religion, all over a God. I'm an atheist, just so people know. But I believe that you can, I don't have any issue with religion besides the fact when you start shoving it down people's throats, or when you start killing people because of it, or you use Jesus for a reason to hate, or use your religion as a validation for your discrimination and your hate towards somebody, basically, is the only time I have a problem with religion. Other than that, believe what you want to believe. That's how I feel about that. But moving on, because I don't want to stick too much on religion, because I know people will get highly offended when it comes to religion. We'll do that for another episode of Secret Kelly Radio, because I would love to get into that, honestly, even if it does offend people. Sometimes I'm an equal opportunist when it comes to offending people, and I don't mind being the one everyone complains about. But yeah, so tonight we again are going to be talking about politics. I know I've repeated myself a few times now. I'm just trying to figure out which one I want to start, dive into. Because I don't like to be too organized, even though some people might say you should be organized, but I like to be more off the cuff, and I like to be authentic and real about it. So let's start with AVN, because there was lots of drama at AVN this year, from transphobia to Little Pump, rape, rudeness from hosts they had at the event. Just a number of issues. So many issues of why I don't go to award shows anymore, specifically AVN. They've been constantly having issues with transphobia. They fix it, and then they go back to it, and they fix it, they go back to it. But they're, and now there's a new owner, and I believe that My Free Cams owns it now, who, I'm not surprised there was transphobia because they don't really allow trans women on their website, so I'm not surprised at all by that, to be honest. But apparently it was the Hard Rock, a person that worked for the Hard Rock that was basically, I think he was doing security for AVN, I believe. And they kicked the girls out for being trans women. It's ridiculous. And they're performers. There's no defense for that. None. Just thinking about it makes me mad, because a few years back, there was nominees that couldn't walk the carpet, even though they were nominees. Do you want to know why they couldn't walk the carpet? Because they weren't passable enough, pretty enough. They didn't fit the good enough stereotype to walk the carpet. They had their badges. They even showed where they were nominees. But Wendy Williams and Brittany, what was her last name? I forget her last name. Let me look it up, just to make sure, because I want to get her last name wrong. Brittany St. Jordan. Brittany St. Jordan was one of the ones that they wouldn't allow on the carpet. She wrote a letter, a great letter, and it went kind of viral in the industry. And then AVN sat down with them, and they supposedly fixed it. And now, here in 2020, they're having another issue. But again, it's new owners. And then also, I've heard that there was a protester who was protesting Sesta Fosta. So she had a sign that said, "I don't want awards." She was a performer. "I don't want awards. I want sex workers' rights. Fuck Sesta Fosta," basically. And they kicked her out. Now, mind you, the porn industry is legal because of free speech. Should they be stifling anyone's speech? Especially when it's a supportive speech? Because Sesta Fosta has affected our industry? I don't think so. It's just disappointing. And then they had a performer, rapper, I guess you would call him, named Little Pump. Little Pump had a girl come over, said he would pay her. They had sex, obviously. And then he didn't pay her. Told her to get out. Then he made fun of her on his live, bragged about it, thought he was hot shit. And then they still allowed him to come to AVN and perform. Now, granted, maybe AVN didn't know about it, but I do really think they need to do vetting for performers that they have at AVN. Cardi B was really good because she uplifted girls. She wasn't embarrassed of it. She's never been ashamed of her past and sex work. She used to be a stripper. They should definitely have performers and commentators or hosts that are going to be pro-sex work and pro-porn industry. It does a disservice to the performers in it, especially when those performers are not paid very much. And they're one time a year to really be flowered with attention and with praise and with awards and getting dressed up for what they do and whatever is that one time a year award season. Now it seems like there's tons of award seasons. No, I mean tons of awards shows. I shouldn't say award seasons, award shows. But AVN is one of the biggest ones. XBiz is quickly growing right behind him. And XBiz, I have to say, does a much better job at inclusion. And I hope with the new management, they will get the memo and they will fix things. But we'll see. But I do want to talk about Little Pump and why he's a predator and why he is a rapist. See, a lot of people don't see it as rape because she consented, right? She consented to the sex act. She said yes. But why did she say yes? Why did she agree to have sex with him? For monetary gain. He bought her consent. That is literally what you do with somebody that does full service sex work. You are buying their consent. You're buying their time and their service. When he did not pay her, he reneged, and her consent was no longer valid. So in essence, he raped her. And then people were arguing with me today, like, oh, it's not people, I should say men, that are not in the industry and not sex workers. We're arguing today that it's more like theft. No, it's not like theft. Somebody being in your body is definitely different than somebody not paying for your service if you fixed a car or fixed a computer or whatever the case may be. A lot of these girls have to deal with some of the raunchiest and most horrible men to make their coin, to make that money. It's mentally draining. It fucks many of them up. And when you don't get the monetary gain out of it. What do you get out of it for them? You just got abused by a man. Then he goes on to his live and brags about it to thousands and thousands of men, calling you a bitch, making fun of you, mocking you, telling men it's okay to treat sex workers this way. It's not okay. He's a predator. He's a rapist. This is why sex work needs to be decriminalized. It needs to be decriminalized, and full service sex workers need protections against things like this. I don't understand people that sit there and say, or can argue that it shouldn't be decriminalized, that it needs to be illegal. You are literally being illegal is protecting the pimps. It's protecting men like Little Pump. It's protecting them. It's protecting people to be violent against sex workers. And whether you want to believe it or not, their work is valid. My work is valid. It's a form of entertainment. It's a form of pleasure. It is a form, a lot of these girls will make a guy happy. A woman happy. A lot of these guys that are escorts for women will make women happy. Everyone enjoys a little bit of happiness. Everyone enjoys a little bit of sex. Especially if they can't get anywhere else. And if there's somebody willing to provide that, then they should be paid for it, like any other service. And it should be decriminalized. It should be legal. I don't like using the illegal and legal terms because speaking to many different sex activist groups, they find that to be offensive. And so I try to respect that whenever I can, as much as I can. But yeah, what are your thoughts? I want to hear from the men. Do you think it's rape? I mean, she was told that if she had sex with him, he would pay her so-and-so amount of money. He didn't come through. He bought her consent. Then he didn't pay her and kicked her out. What else would you call it? I'm curious. No. You have to sign up. You have to sign up on, you can go to Secret Kelly Radio. I think it's called, you can go to Spreaker.com, Aaron, and you should be able to sign up for a name on my radio show. Or just go to Secret Kelly Radio, then it should tell you how to sign up. Hi, Madeline. How are you? So another topic I want to talk about is trans woman versus woman. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I saw Blair White talk about this. I saw Ariel talk about this. And I keep on seeing it popping up. And, oh, goodness. Trans issues have become such an issue because of the fact that now we are on the, now we're in the public eye more. We're becoming more relevant. We're being spoken about. We are being talked about in politics. We're being talked about worldwide, in in the kitchen, in your living rooms. So we are now, kind of dominating social issues for conservatives, like gays were back in the day. Before now, many conservatives are all of a sudden like, "Oh, I'm okay now with gays, but you trans women, that's just too much." That's basically what the message is. When back in the 90s and before, they were saying the exact same thing about gay people, about lesbians, gay and lesbians. And it's sad to see gay and lesbians now getting a little bit of that, getting a little bit of that power, or that, climbing up the totem pole. Many of them are now throwing trans people under the bus because they're like, well, we got our privilege and they're okay with us, so fuck you. And I find like minorities do this to each other all the time. And it's good that the majority aren't, but there are factions of the LGB that are doing this to the T, and the Q. I should say T and Q, because a lot of them have also have issue with the Q, which is queer. But I want to talk about that because, all in all, I was raised female. I transitioned at 12 years old. And before that, I was playing with Barbies. I was with my girl cousin. We were playing secretary. I was always the wife. I was always the mom. Like little girls play. Like little girls always play, I'm the mom. I have my husband, and, whatever the case may be. I was not raised as a boy. I was not so socially, I was raised female. And basically when I turned 12, I started doing like what other girls did. What did we start doing around 12, 13, 14 years old? We start experimenting with makeup. We start experimenting with fashion. We start experimenting, what girls do. We start getting a little bit girlier if we were tomboys before. Because I know many girls that were tomboys, and like my girlfriends of mine that I went to school with. And when they hit 12, 13, all of a sudden they, hung up the hats, started putting lip gloss on, started putting mascara on, started dressing a little bit more feminine. Just a natural progression. And my progression was basically the same, a natural progression. So I personally have never saw it as a transition or the way that other girls do. Now, I can understand if I was living as a man for a period of time, like most girls do, and, either as a gay man or living as a cis straight man, and then, took on all the stereotypes of a man, tried to live as a man, and take on the social constructs of a man. I can understand sometimes that point where they're saying like, oh, you'll never understand what it is to be a woman, and yada, yada, yada. But girls like myself, Jazz, other young transitioners that are transitioning like when they're 6 years old or whatever the case may be, overall they're having a female experience and they're being raised as females. And it's not to say they're just like females, not to say they're but they are a type of female. Just like a BBW has different experiences than a skinny woman. It's just different types of females. I am a different type of female. But I prefer, hey Jade, but I personally prefer to be a trans woman. And I'm going to tell you why I prefer to be a trans woman. And I've said this today, I've said this yesterday. For me, because I get this question a lot, I get the question all the time. If I could go back in time and choose to have been born a female, would I have chosen to just, do away with it all? And I have to be honest, there's probably a 10-15% part of me that would want that at times. When I'm frustrated or I'm annoyed or whatever the case may be. But 85 to 90% of me I'm a very proud trans woman, and I like being a trans woman. And there are a number of reasons why I like being a trans woman. Because A, I can't get pregnant. I don't want to ever get pregnant. And I don't have that maternal instinct in me. And a lot of women don't. Not just trans women. Because a lot of trans women are maternal and they do want to have babies. And they cry about it that they can't have a baby. Just like any other woman that is infertile. But I'm not one of those people. I just don't see myself as a mother. I'm a stepmother, but I don't see myself as somebody that wants to go through pregnancy or experience pregnancy or raise a child. Overall, the father is, in my relationship, the father will always be the parent, and I'm just kind of like, not a friend, but somebody that's there to support and to give nurturing and kindness, and hopefully they can learn something from me. But other than that, I have no desire to be a parent. And that's just the case, it's just, for me, so for me, the plus side of being a trans woman is that I can't get pregnant. Another plus side of being a trans woman is that 99% of the time, I will get pleasure from sex, meaning I'll orgasm. And I've shared this stat on my radio show, or on my radio show, in my webcam shows all the time. Over 53% of women never orgasm in their life. I'm sorry to break that to men, but a lot of women, they fake it. I talk to my girlfriends all the time. I have a lot of sisters. I have lots of girlfriends, from in porn to regular life to, whatever. And they all tell me they fake it. And I don't know why that's so surprising, but those same men would tell you, like many of my friends' boyfriends and husbands and whatnot, would tell you that they make her orgasm all day long. Oh yeah, she definitely orgasms. But when you are in a circle of women, we start telling the tea or the truth. We start talking about women issues and we start being honest about our sexual experiences and what was good, what was bad. And I can tell you a lot of them will have told me that they have faked it with everyone they've ever been with. That's just fact. So I think men have a lot of ego when it comes to that. But that's another plus side for me, because, and I always say that to men too, to men, Another plus side of trans women is, at least with a trans woman, you can always tell that she got off. You can always tell that she orgasmed. There's no guesswork in it. So I always say that's a plus side. Another plus side for me about being a trans woman is I like being somebody that's a chip in the matrix. And what I mean by that is our society is so indoctrinated. We're all indoctrinated to be in a marriage, to be husband and wife, have kids, and live a certain way. And if we don't live that certain way, we're weird, we're outcast. You know, women that don't want to be mothers still get shamed by women. They don't realize that they're basically upholding the patriarchy that's held them down for years. Men have made that men made that, and women submitted to it. Now women, because they're becoming, because there's birth control and there's abortion and other ways that they can choose to keep up with men, and they want to keep up with men, and they don't want to be a mother, and they shouldn't have to be a mother, and they shouldn't have to give life or be an incubator, and that's okay. Not everyone wants to be a mother. Not everyone wants to be pregnant. That's funny, Jade. See, one of my female listeners, my girlfriend, Jade, I have had to fake it a lot before. A lot. So, and I honestly think it's kind of a disservice to men. I think men would be better in bed, or try to be better in bed. I really do think this. If women were more forthright and said to them what they like, and said to them, okay, you're not doing it right. This is what works for me. And men were open to being criticized and not getting offended. I think they would be better lovers. That's just fact. Communication is key in the bedroom. But I think a lot of times women don't express that because women are taught to not be open about things like sex. They just are. They're conditioned from a young age to not be open about sex. Men aren't. Men can be free about talking about sex and going around being a womanizer and everything. That's okay. Now, if a woman does that with men, she's a slut. Slut shaming comes in. So, I digress. But more reasons why I like being a trans woman. Like I said, I like being a chip in the matrix. I like the fact that I've helped many trans kids, gay kids when I was going to high school as a girl, when I was, young, to be able to do the same thing as me. Because I set precedent for it. And I went to their schools and said, and I fought for them. I would have never been able to do that if I wasn't who I am. I like the fact that I can change views on trans women and LGBTQ people in general. I don't think I would be able to do that as much as a cis woman. And I also think that if I was a cis woman, when I look at my sister Monica, not so much my other sister, but my sister Monica, I think I'd be a lot more closed-minded. I think I would be not as open as I am, because I'm actually expanding my views on non-binary people. As over the years, I was more closed off from it, and I'll totally admit that. But I'm becoming more open to it because of the non-radical, non-binary people. I was labeling or broad stroking every non-binary person because of the experiences I've had with certain radical non-binary people. And it actually took a cis man named Vosh on YouTube to change my mind. So I might be wrong that I could have been influential as a cis woman to change people's views on trans people, because he's a cis man and he makes great arguments for trans people all the time on his YouTube channel. So I might be wrong about that, but I do think that I would have been more close-minded as a cis woman than I am now. I think because I'm a trans woman, I'm a lot more open-minded. I'm a lot more patient. I'm a lot more kind. And I'm a stronger because of it. And I would never give that up. So for me, my experiences as a trans woman have made me who I am. Everything I am, even though I was raised as a girl and predominantly in society, I'm seen as a female. It's still a big part of my life. And it's raised me who I am. Now, I never really had issues with dating, and that's why I wrote a dating book, because I think that a lot of the issues that trans women have with dating is because a lot of times it's their own hung up nature. And then vice versa with men, a lot of times men have with trans dating, it's a lot of times it's because of how they speak and how they look at trans women and how they interact, and they think that trans women like things. So also it's both sides. But me personally, I've never really had issues with dating. I've pretty much dated all my life with no issues. Oh wow, Jade. Jade said, my ex was very held back for a man. He never wanted oral from me, saying, only sluts do that. Only sluts give blowjobs. And we only had sex missionary, and he wouldn't do it any other way. Well, I'm very sorry you experienced that. But honestly, that is a lot of men that are conservative. A lot of men think that way. I also have met many men that were they only think sex is for production. That's not just a woman's view. That's a man's view. I know many men that feel that way, that are religious. They feel that sex is only to procreate. So, again, it's a man's view too, but a lot of times women get blamed for that view. But they're indoctrinated to believe that. It's all indoctrination. Our schools are indoctrinated to teach us, because we mostly whitewash history. We don't learn a lot about Black people besides, Black History Month? So our schools basically teach us to be racist or to recognize different classes. They call it class. I call it, whites are better and blacks are, not as good. That's what we're taught. One of my favorite people is Jane Elliott. I love her experiments that she does. I would look her up. She does this eye experiment where she basically separates blue eyes from brown eyes, blue and green, like light colored people eyes, from kind of like the Holocaust. How Hitler felt. There was a standard. The blue eye was the standard. But she does the opposite. And she basically treats them like half citizens. And you should see all these white people get so offended at the way they're being treated. And it's so ironic because they don't realize it's the exact same way that Black people get treated every day. They have to deal with it every day. And these white people, like you see them on video, getting so offended, and they cry and they get really, really upset. And it's because they don't realize that the privilege that they have as a white person. I've had many one night. Another one of my people in the chat say I've had many one night stands in gay bars because straight men think that it does not amount to cheating, and I've heard that too. I've also heard that you're not gay as long as you don't do anything on them. You know what I mean? I've heard from many times like, I can't be gay if he just sucks me off and I don't receive anything back. I've heard that many times. I just think it's a way for people to like, insecure people to tell themselves that it's okay. But overall, I like being a trans woman. My experiences as a trans woman have been positive. Even when I was an activist on the front lines and fighting against homophobes and transphobes and whatever the case may be, my experience has overall been good. Even with like the trans, like I don't like the infighting of the trans community versus the LGBT community or the LGBT community. I wish there wasn't so much, and because I've always had good experiences with the gay community, to be honest, and I just wish there wasn't so much infighting, and that we support each other more. That's so needed. So, now let's talk about politics because, obviously, if you have followed me on Twitter or Facebook or wherever you follow me, I'm very political, and I've always said that being trans is political because the world makes it political, especially in these times, from bathroom bills to blocking trans women from trying to go to school and blocking young transitioners like myself from getting hormone blockers. I mean, Republicans are trying everything right now. But, the Trump administration basically says that we're too mental to be to serve our country, and the list goes on. When trans people have been serving in the military for years. And the funny thing to me is that a lot of people are trans. They identify as trans or they are trans. They just haven't taken any steps to transition. So is their opinion that you're just a psycho or not good enough when you transition? Because they were always trans. There's tons and tons of people out there right now that haven't taken a step in their transition but are trans. And it's because the reason they're not coming out is because they're scared. My first surgeries, I used to be on a site called X Peeps when I was first trying to get into the adult industry. There was a site called X Peeps and Hung Angels and whatnot. And the first guy that paid for my surgeries was he was a rich contractor, and he built like baseball fields, huge baseball fields all over America. And he was trans. And he paid for my first surgeries in Mexico. My stay, my surgeries. No, it was not sexual. Didn't have to do anything sexual. But he said, if I can't transition, I want to help you transition the way you want to transition. So yes, my first surgeries was through a fan that was trans. He just wasn't ready to take those steps because of who he was and his life. So, it happens a lot, guys. I think it's so funny that so many people think that trans has just been an issue in the last few years. I never heard about these trans people in my life. I hear that all the time in my little area that I live in. And it's always funny to me because a lot of times they're speaking to me when they're saying this stuff. And they don't realize they're talking to a trans woman. But, yeah. But yeah, trans is political because the world makes it political. So that's why I'm so political, because of the fact of who I am and being trans. And they're stepping on us left and right. Any kind of freedoms that we were getting under Obama have kind of been taken. Because obviously most of the stuff he did for us was through executive privilege. Executive power. He has that privilege as a president. And as soon as another president comes in, they can kind of just wave their hand and it's gone, which is what Trump did. And he sat there and said, oh, I'm going to be the best thing to happen to LGBTQ people, even better than Hillary. Held up his little pride flag. Pandering, basically. And then you should have known by who he has in his office and who his running mate was. It was Mike Pence, who is for conversion therapy, which is abuse. It's an abuse. It is an abuse on a human for loving who for being attracted to what they're attracted to. You're going to get aroused off of whatever. You can't help what you get aroused off of. And I always love to see these converted gay men get caught, because they're supposed to be the ones that are teaching these new recruits of conversion therapy to be straight while they come off, gay as hell. And they always get caught hooking up with the recruits, molesting them because they're underage. And these are obviously adult men. Then you have the Catholic Church. Church of England just came out and said, their progress, I guess, Church of England's progress was saying, all right, we're okay with gay marriage as long as you don't have sex. And then obviously the Catholic Church is still against us, against gay men. And they're even worse with trans women. They think trans women are, the Catholic Church think that trans women are abominations, which is even worse than being gay. So, yeah. But the Church of England just recently came out and said they only see sex valid between a married couple. And otherwise than that, you're dissenting from God. So, but with that said, I would be totally fine with those views if it didn't affect the government and it didn't affect people that are in the government to make these decisions. And it does. It does. The Catholic Church is just another branch of the government. This is why the gay movement has taken so long to get ahead. Also because we don't vote. 1 in 5 of us don't vote in elections. And then we complain all day about not having rights. Why did it take so long? But in general, The church in America specifically affects government, from anti-abortion to anti-LGBT to, back in the day, interracial marriage, slavery, segregation. I can keep going. And they might have, that religion may have even been a reason why the Jews were singled out by Hitler. So yeah, religion plays a big part in politics. And when they say, and when the only thing honest about Republicans, what they've been saying lately, is them saying that there's no separation between church and state. There is, supposedly, but it's an honest statement because there's not. The church affects everything in our government a lot of times. And it's the reason why conservatives push back. Oh, Jade has a question. I actually have a question kind of related to politics. They're actually considering putting cis women with high testosterone in the trans category, more specifically considering them intersex. What are your thoughts on that, as I am one of those types? Well, how is that going to affect? I want to know, like, the details. How would that affect the woman? Because I know there's one in. How is that going to affect women in sports? Do you know? Because I don't mind if a woman is categorized as a trans, because obviously I categorize myself as a woman. So why would I get offended about them being labeled that way? However, it's not women choosing to be labeled that way. I take issue with that. It's somebody else choosing to label them that way. Through and through, you're a woman, no matter if you have high testosterone or not, unless you identify as something different because of gender dysphoria or because you're non-binary. But if you're binary, you're a woman regardless if you have high testosterone or if you have low testosterone. You don't have to be a picture perfect model to be a woman. That's like saying China's not a woman because China was a bodybuilder and a wrestler, and because she had a very broad shoulders and broad muscles, and so does that negate her as being a woman? No. But there are many intersex people something that people don't realize that they're figuring out with, to go on your thing, Jade. Something they're figuring out. There's millions of people that are intersexed that aren't born with both parts, but their biology, when they do like their DNA, etc., they're figuring out those people are intersexed. They were born intersexed. Many people are born intersexed without being born with both parts. And people just can't grasp their head around that because our schools have been teaching that there's only X, XY, and XX. When there's XXXY, and there's XXX, and there's YY, and the list goes on. And it's more complicated than people thought it was before, and science is getting a grasp on that because they're actually studying all this. And I think in the next 20 years we'll probably have it all explained. Just like they're explaining how we became who we are, how the earth was made, and how some people believe in the Big Bang theory, etc., etc. Science is explaining all those things. Just like we're finding out there's other universes, not just our universe, there's more universes out there. The universe keeps on going. Do I think there will be a gay or trans president of the US in the future or anyone from the LGBT community? I do. I actually think that Pete would have a better chance of running as president if he wasn't so cookie cutter. You know what I mean? I think if he came off more authentic and wasn't so bad with black messaging, he would actually be a good contender for president. Mayor Pete's problem is because he has such an issue with race issues. And he comes off too cookie cutter, and it comes off very inauthentic. I actually think if his husband would run, who's much more likable, more charismatic, I think that he could have a better chance of running as president. Because honestly, let's be real, it's about likability in America. We actually worry less about policy than we do about, do we like him or her? Overall, that's what voters do. So I think with Mayor Pete, if he was more likable and didn't come off so the way that he does, he would be doing so much better. Interesting. You're taking hormone blockers, Jade. Yeah, I've heard that. I know they're making a woman do that in Africa too, who was a sports player, who was born intersex. She's having to take um, hormone blockers because her testosterone was too high, and I know that they're making her do that to compete. Because I also want to get into that tonight about the whole sports thing, because that was a big issue. But another thing, before I get into that, I want to talk about why I'm getting into the sports thing because of Bernie. Let's talk Bernie. Ooh, that's upset some people. Now, overall, I'm going to be totally honest. I was a Hillary Clinton supporter in 2016. Overall, I liked Bernie as a senator because of his messaging in the Senate a lot of times when he was on news shows. But I was through and through a Hillary Clinton supporter. Now, I'm a Warren supporter. And you might say, oh, it's because she's a woman. And maybe 25% of that's true. Because I'm tired of men being the only ones that can be the president. I'm sorry, I just am. I at least there's only been 2 VPs considered that ran as a running mate as a woman. The last one was in 1984, who was a Democrat. And the most recent one was obviously Sarah Palin. Now, Sarah Palin was not a good running mate. She was horrible. But at least the Republicans considered a woman in recent times. So I'm going to be upset if 2 white men are the ones that are in the end fighting for the primary. If it's Bernie and Biden, and neither of them have a woman as VP or consider a woman as VP. Do I think Elizabeth Warren get the nomination? I'm not sure on Warren. I don't try to pay attention to the polls, but she's not doing very well in the polls because of the whole I don't think that her stunt played out well for her. If she wouldn't have done the whole, Bernie is a sexist or whatever, his cult. Because I don't really I like Bernie, I just don't like I don't like a lot of his followers. His followers are so, ugh, they're just so polarizing. But um, his supporters really mess with her, and they have really um, hurt her chances in a lot of ways. Yeah, I like Warren. I like Steyer too, but I think he's kind of weak. I don't think that he'll be able to take on Trump. I like his messaging on climate, and he speaks well, but as far as going up against as far as going up against Trump, I don't think Steyer would do very well. He's just way too nice. We need somebody that's a little bit more strong. I think that Warren would do well. But getting back to Bernie, but yeah, like I said, I was a Hillary supporter. I am voting for I'm voting for anybody that's blue this time around. Anybody. I would vote for a freaking peanut butter sandwich to go up against Trump at this moment in 2020. But I am very upset with Bernie because of the fact that, I don't have an issue that Joe Rogan endorsed him. I don't have an issue that he went on Joe Rogan's show. That is not my issue. My issue is that he amplified Joe's voice on his Twitter page. He made an ad of it. And all of his supporters are like, oh, it was good because, Joe Rogan, has all these, we need these votes, we need them to turn to this side, and blah, 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 blah. And that's fine, but Joe Rogan's listening following is so much bigger than Bernie's. There was no reason for Bernie to amplify it. And he didn't just endorse Bernie, really. It was kind of a half endorsement, to be honest, because he said, oh, I'll probably vote for Bernie, but I also liked a lot of the other candidates that came on my show, which was Yang and Tulsi. So there was no reason to amplify it. And he's already has an issue with a lot of black women. And he's having issues around this time because with LGBTQ people, especially the trans community, because of the fact that we keep on inviting him to our LGBTQ forums where he can hear what we have to say and what our concerns are as Americans when he represents us. And he doesn't show up. And that's a big issue with a lot of people. Big issue for me. You can say what you want about Hillary, but Hillary made it possible where trans women could change their passports easier. She put together a coalition of trans women to help her with policies for trans women and men. She hired a trans woman, Sarah McBride. So, your actions show a lot to me. And I'm not seeing a lot of action from Bernie. And that's problematic for me. And you can sit there and say, oh, blah, 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 blah. He had some kind of event back in 1982 for trans people and yada, yada, yada. But you know what? I was the secretary of St. Pete Pride. And at that time, the mayor was a Republican. He was very anti-LGBTQ. Very. So was the Gulfport mayor. And they met with me. We talked. And they allowed us to have our Pride events. while still being anti-LGBTQ. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to give him cookies or give him a bunch of praise for doing that in 1982 because Republicans do it too in the South. Oh, he allowed a pride event. Big whoopty fucking do. It's just like when they bring up him marching and but you know what? He wasn't even marching against segregation. There's actually an interview of him talking about why he was marching. He was helping protest. It was less about civil rights. He was helping protest for union workers that were black. There's an interview of it, guys. I'll retweet it on my Twitter if you don't believe me. Just like Bernie said that gay issues are not a civil rights issue, and he's not really concerned with that because Bernie's whole thing is about economics and class war, which is fine. But I think that Warren understands it better. I think Warren is a better messenger on it. I think that Warren can write plans, and get her points across. When she's interviewed about it, she makes sense. Bernie just has his little campaign speech, his rally speeches, even in serious interviews with the New York Times, with CBS. List goes on. He needs numbers. He needs facts. He needs to sit down with his policy team because if he is the one that's going to be in the general, he's going to be pressed on that. He's going to be challenged on that, and he's going to have to be able to answer those questions. I'm sorry, you can't just keep on going back to XYZ, this is what I'm going to do, if you can't prove this is what you're going to do or how you're going to do it. And when Hillary Clinton said he's not liked, this is another thing. Everyone's like, oh, everyone loves Bernie. Everyone loves him. What are you talking about? Hillary, you're a bitch. Hillary was not talking about voters. She wasn't talking about voters. She was talking about Washington. Bernie has been in office for 30 plus years, or around 30 years. I think it's been 30 years. And he hasn't barely put any bills through, and most of the bills he put through were not for black people, not for LGBTQ people, were not for a lot of the things he preaches about. Because if you want to look at Vermont, he has a big voice. He could influence there. He could have the same messaging there. But if you look at Vermont, they have the highest college tuition in the country. Highest college tuition. But he wants to give away free college, remember? And Vermont has the third highest rate of black incarcerations. When there's only 1% of black people there. 1% of black people live there. Now, he can sit there and speak about being a liberator and being this, that, and the other, as well as his followers. But if he was such a liberator and for so much social issues, he wouldn't have moved to the whitest state in America, which Vermont is. 96% white. He would have moved to Illinois and lived in Chicago. Moved to New Jersey. Moved to New York. Moved to Georgia. Louisiana. I can keep going. Where the black population is astounding. So you can't just rewrite history for him, and that's what annoys me about his supporters. They make him out to be some kind of god or some kind of walk-on-water candidate, and I'm telling you, it's very easy to criticize other people when you're not doing much of anything. He has passed 7 bills, and he's been in office for how long? 30 years. And most of those bills were for post offices and VFW. and the other two were for actual legitimate bills, and one of them was because of John McCain for veterans. I think two of them were both for veterans. And it was because one senator, which is what Hillary said, which was John McCain. And John McCain got that passed. Oh, you like that what I said about Mitt Romney? Yeah, he's cute. I don't know, he's cute. I don't like his views. Like for an older guy, he's cute. But overall, I like Bernie. But you have to be pragmatic and you have to be honest about it. I think what's going to happen is that if we don't get more progressives in Congress, it's going to be a bunch of do nothing. We don't have enough AOCs or the squad or enough progressive voices in Congress. So Bernie's going to be up against the Amy's of the party, which is more centrist. Amy Klobuchar. It's going to be like the Amy's of the party, more centrist, and then you're also going to be fighting against the Republicans. So you guys are all thinking about the presidency, but you're going to put Bernie in there with basically zero support. And what happens when there's zero support? Pushback. At least Obama had the Democratic Party that were in Congress. He's gonna have a wall up against him. So what's gonna happen with that? Bernie's gonna make some executive orders. He can only make so many. He can only do so much. He can't do an executive order of Medicare for all or the Green New Deal. He can't do that. He can make things easier and better for drinking water and climate and things like that. He can do that kind of executive orders, but he can't do an executive order for Medicare for all. He can't do an executive order for the Green New Deal, which they won't even take a vote in Congress for Medicare for all. They won't even take a vote for it. And Green New Deal is dead in the water. And so what I think is going to happen is, if Bernie does get in, it's going to be a bunch of disillusionment. Oh, he didn't do any, because they always been president. It's never Congress. At the end of the day, majority of people blame the president, even though Obama was up against a bunch of like assholes. Mitch McConnell and all of his blocking. But at the end of the day, you need to be liked in Congress. You need to get people on your side. And he's not. So Hillary was correct about that. And that's a reality, and no one wants to admit that. But what I think is going to happen is there's going to be because what happened with Obama. Everyone was like, oh, he promised hope and change. Well, lots of parts of the country didn't feel that hope and change. So they became disillusioned with the Democratic Party. And where'd they go? Those angry whites didn't see anything better. Those angry white men didn't see anything better. So they went the other way. And that's exactly what will probably happen with Bernie. He'll have 4 years. And if he doesn't get anyone in there in the Congress to help him, it's going to be another do-nothing president. And people aren't going to see any change. And we'll go right back to Republicans. And that's if he even wins, because the Republican Party is determined to keep power. That's why they're bending over backwards for Trump. They know that the majority of the country don't see the world as they do. They don't. We know that. Hillary got way more votes than Trump. But our country doesn't represent us anymore. They represent the minority. They represent the corporations. They represent the military complex, industrial military complex. They're not representing the people anymore. They want to stay back in time. They want to go back in time. Hell, some Republicans want to take us back to the 50s without realizing that when they were living in the 50s, they were paying so much more in taxes. That's why it was so great in the 50s. And I just don't understand how people can still think the Republican Party is for them with a tax cut. They made the rich corporations and the rich tax cuts permanent. Versus the middle class, it's not permanent, and it's going to go up. And remember, they said they're going to make a bill to make it permanent? I don't see that bill. Do you? I don't see it. And then they want to get rid of health care altogether and go back to the way it was. When 40,000 people are already dying a year because they don't have health care in America. So it's just shocking to me that middle class people and people that aren't millionaires and are still voting Republican. It's always, oh, I'm just physically conservative and I'm socially, like, libertarians even. I don't get it. If you are not in the millionaire class, there should be no reason that you should be a Republican. You're just voting against yourself. Voting against your family. Voting against your success in life. I just don't get it. I just cannot understand it. There's literally people that I see that live in trailers, can barely get by, and they're still voting Trump, hoping for a better tomorrow. Because he tells them they're going to get more back on their paycheck. Because, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of racists in the Republican Party. I mean, it's the home of racists. But there are many voters in the Republican Party that aren't racist. And they really believe that top-down economics works. They believe it. That is how indoctrinated they are with Fox News and Breitbart and whatever. They really believe that if you give the rich, more and more tax cuts, more and more subsidies, more and more power, that their life is going to get better. That they're going to see a piece of that pie. That they're going to raise their wage. That they're going to pay them better, give them better health care, give them better benefits. No. No. And they still trust the banks. Even after 9/11. They think there should be more deregulation. Like Trump wants. Which Trump is working on right now. And already has done. They truly believe that. It's not all about race. It's not because they're just racist. A lot of people say, "Oh, they're racist. You're racist. That's why you're a Trump supporter." And the only reason a lot of this is working against immigrants is because they really believe that. They really think that immigrants are taking their jobs. When it's a number of things. It's not just, it's technology. It's because they keep on moving businesses over to different countries. You have all Indian call centers, all Asian call centers, because they can pay cheaper. They don't have to pay you a living wage. In America, we expect you to, give somebody where we're not really giving them living wage even, because some places the minimum wage isn't even gonna let you get by. You have to work 2 or 3 jobs, which many Americans are. And that's sad because they're working their life away when they could be spending time with their children or their families or their friends or living a life. And instead, they're working through 2 or 3 jobs just trying to get food on the table or pay their rent. Your whole life shouldn't be about working. You need to have some downtime and to enjoy it too, especially if you're a mother or a father. Or you need to be there for your parent, for your child. And our economy is causing a bunch of absent parents from their children's life. And that's not good for development. That's not good for them as children growing into adults. It's just not. But yeah, so basically my problem with Bernie is that he promises a lot. And he's honest. I'll give him that. He'll be very honest and say he'll tell them that I can't do this without, XYZ. I need to have more support in Congress. But his followers don't listen to that. They overlook it because he doesn't say that often. He's honest about it, but he only says that when he's really challenged on it, I should say. Oh, as well as another reason Bernie has a problem with the black community, the black vote, is because he voted for the crime bill. While calling other people out for voting for it. It's another thing about Bernie. He's kind of a hypocrite in that way. Kind of like his supporters. I believe he called his supporters were all going after Hillary for calling people back and when her husband was president and did a speech to support him, which is probably written for her, calling these gang members that would prey on children and recruit them to live these lives, and she called them super predators. But let's get to the reason why there are gang members and these so-called super predators and these so-called drug dealers, etc. Why is that? Couldn't have anything to do with a living wage. Couldn't have anything to do with there still being ghettos. A lot of these people that are still living in these low-income neighborhoods are still stuck there all the way from segregation time. And they're not getting out anytime soon because opportunity isn't there. Because we give our opportunity to the people at the top and to the military industrial complex. We don't invest in those areas. We don't invest in our schools. We don't invest in a lot of things. We don't invest in vocational centers that can teach people how to do other things. You could have free 2 year schools to teach people about technology and computers and get them ready for what's coming in the future, so that these factory workers that are being fired left and right have something to do, instead of them being angry and blaming it on it's because of the immigrants, and Trump has used that for his advantage. The other, the Republicans have always done this. It's always the other. That's how they win. It's not you, it's them. They've been doing that forever and a day. And yep, single mom, another message. Yep, single mom of an autistic son, so I have to work 2 to 16 hours shifts a week just to keep bills paid. Being Fear Girl helps too. Also on the race thing, I can never hate someone by their skin color. We all bleed red. My son is also half Mexican, so there's that too. And I agree. I agree. And the funny thing is, there's really only one race, especially if you're a Christian. This is what the funniest thing is. If you are a Christian and you believe in Adam and Eve, and you believe the Bible, right? The world started with 2 people, correct? So all these people are a lineage of Adam and Eve, and we're all related, right? If you believe in the Bible. I don't, but if you do, which is a lot of Americans, then you are related to a black man. You are related to a Mexican man. You're related to an Asian man. List goes on. And they actually found, if you again pay attention to science, the first people were black in Africa. We're all descendants from Africa. And then we started moving away from the equator. And we moved away from the equator, we got lighter and lighter and lighter. Because we didn't start in America. Where did we start? We started we came from Upper Europe. White people did. Yeah, we're all committing incest. I just wish that people would pay more attention in school. Like it just, or does not. I just feel like they forgot everything. It's just like, and racism is taught. It's just taught. You're just taught to think things, and you don't even realize it. You don't even realize you're being indoctrinated until you break from it. And people are breaking from it more and more every day, which is great. But it's still taking a long time. What do I think about the Joe Rogan thing? I actually just talked about that, but I'll tell you again. Again, I want to make this clear to my Bernie supporting fans. I don't care that he went on the show. I don't care that Joe endorsed him. What I care about is he amplified the message through his Twitter when he didn't need to. He's amplifying a bigot, a racist, a transphobe. when Bernie doesn't need to. Because Joe has a much bigger following than Bernie. And the endorsement was done. Just like a lot of people are pointing out that Hillary was endorsed by Howard and comparing Howard Stern to Joe Rogan. But did you see Hillary make an ad for Howard? No. She didn't. Do you know why she probably didn't? Because Howard is a controversial person. Just like Joe Rogan's a controversial person. And it offends people. Especially people that are minorities. LGBTQ. Black people specifically. And who is in our voting bloc? Democrats. Who is in our voting bloc? Brown people. Black women. Black men. So you don't bite the hand that feeds you. And many of them see it as a slap in the face. As well as they don't like that you guys are justifying it. You have all these white people justifying Joe Rogan. Literally justifying him. Oh, he's not racist. He was just making quotes. That's why he was saying the N-word. He was making quotes of other people. No, I've seen video of him where he was trying to get white people to say try to say the N-word. I'm sorry, if you're white, I don't care if you are reading out of a book, history book, and it has the N-word in it, or if you are copying the lyrics from a song, whatever the case may be, if you are a Caucasian person, you should not be using the N-word. I don't care who you are. That's funny, Jade. And then with the transphobic thing, which is why I wanted to bring up the sports thing with Joe Rogan. Joe is one of those people, like most people, that point to 3 cases where trans people have dominated the females. Or they talk about how, I think her name is Fallon or something like that. She's a boxer. Let me look up her name because I don't want to get it wrong. Because I don't pay attention to boxing or MMA or whatever. Fallon Fox is her name. And she's retired. Oh, she fights out of Schaumburg, Illinois, so she's from my area, actually. My area of the woods. But they use Fallon Fox because she dominated the women, and one of the women's skulls she's broken or something like that. I don't remember. However, if you look through the history, many women have broken other women's faces or skulls. Broken their jaws, that's what happens when you're MMA fighting. But because it's a trans woman, keep in mind, Fallon Fox is 144 pounds and 5'7". Okay? But because it's a trans woman, they make a big deal out of it. Huge deal out of it. Then you have, trans men that are in boxing. Patricio Manuel, who is now the face of Everlast. And you have a woman that does boxing, a trans woman that does boxing. Her name is Perennia I don't know how to say her last name because I think she's Asian, and it's really hard to say. Sorry. Um, but she is also in boxing, and Asian people have no issue with it. It's literally America and the UK, and obviously it's mostly European Midwest people that have, or Western people that have an issue with this. But they also don't talk about the many people that are competing in sports, women's sports and male sports, that are transgender, that aren't even making eighth place. They're not even competing with the athletes, the women. But whenever a trans woman does well in those fields, they bring up gender. Oh, she stole it. This, and it's like literally like a case here and there. It's not like a huge case, and that's where the transphobia comes in. Now, obviously, I'm not saying you can't just join when you have been a trans woman for like maybe a few months, but when you've been on hormones for 2 years, 3, 5 years, 6 years, and you're sometimes even doing better than most women on testosterone and estrogen, because the endocrinologists, make sure that your levels are great, and sometimes they're even better than a woman's normal estrogen range. Yeah, I do think if you're in this, maybe they should do it where they put them in an upper weight class if they're fighting. Maybe they should be in a higher weight class. But in general, I don't even know if that's a reason. But in general, I just don't see the argument. I just see it as transphobic, because I know, like I was saying the other day, like my friend's daughter, she plays for the boys' football team and literally competes with boys, and she stomps their asses. This girl will tackle them, throw them down. I'm like, she is like one of their best players, and a woman. A girl. She's still a girl because she's still in high school, but you get what I mean. And she also plays on the boys' wrestling team. I just think there's a lot of patriarchy that comes along with this. It's like this, oh, women are so meek and smaller and they can't do as well as men. And I can tell you, a lot of women are stronger than me. I've been on hormones for years, and I know a lot of women that could kick my ass. I have no chance. I'm not a fighter, first of all, and second of all, I'm tiny. And like I said, with the Phelan Foxing, that's usually one they always point to Phelan Fox. But there's plenty of women that have broken other women's jaws in the league. There's plenty of women that dominated everybody before a trans woman was ever able to join the MMA league. I guess they would call it a league. I'm not sure. And now there's trans men that are fighting too, and they're doing well. And they're fighting men, and they're doing well, because a lot of trans men are in better shape than cis men. They have pecs and abs and big muscles and everything. And they're kicking men's asses. Nyla Rose, let me look her up. There's a trans woman making it big in professional wrestling now. Her name is Nyla Rose. Let me look her up. Nyla Rose. Oh, nice. And then you think about China. China, like, even though wrestling is mostly scripted and it's fake, and they, you learn how to do it professionally so you don't hurt each other, yada yada yada. But China was picking up men, like big, huge men, and competing and doing well. I just think there's a bunch of sexism that comes along with it. The patriarchy comes along with it. And Joe is a proponent of that, as well as he just uses certain people to fit his narrative while ignoring all the other trans women and men that are in sports that are not competing with their cis rivals at all. They're not even placing in the top 3. They're not even getting top 8. So where's the argument there? There's my question. And then you have him talking about trans children, saying that we shouldn't be able to transition, saying that we should be on blockers, saying that we don't know who we are. How are you supposed to know yourself that young? When it's the funniest thing ever, because a lot of times children don't even know about gender until we tell them. They just know that they are not the same as their boy count as a I don't want to say boy, but they don't want. I guess I have to say boy because it's, to for the sake of the conversation. They don't realize that they're like boys that are around them. They're more like the girls around them. So they classify better with the girls. Just like I did. I had no idea it was any different than my girl cousin until my mom put us in a bath together and I saw that we had different body parts. It was the most upsetting thing ever. But I was told that. I was told the difference between a boy and a girl. Because we are told what's boy and what's girl. Pink is for girl, blue is for boy. Girls have to do this. Boys can do that. We are brought up socially to be a certain way. Society is about indoctrination and tradition, old traditions. And if you go against that in any way, you're seen as weird. And you don't even have to be LGBTQ. You don't even have to be bi, whatever. You can be somebody that believes in more than one marriage. You can believe somebody that doesn't even believe in marriage, and you're labeled weird. If you don't want to be a parent, you're labeled weird. Because we're indoctrinated to be a certain type of way. And when we go against the matrix, we're the enemy. So, but I always think it's funny when people argue like, oh, they don't even know who they are. We do know who we are as children. I knew who I was as a child. 37 now. Still female. Have no plans on going back. Don't second guess anything. Just like many of my girlfriends that are also young transitioners, but they're more stealth, meaning that they're not open about their trans status. And they live as women, and they're never going to go back. I honestly think that when you're raised as a female overall, you're less insecure, you're less damaged, you're a little bit stronger in yourself and who you are. You're less judgmental to cis people. You get less offended. Whereas when you're trans, when you transition older, any little small thing can set you off because your gender dysphoria is just really ticking off. But like, you have people like Nikki Tutorials that is now open about being trans because she was blackmailed into it. No one even thought she was trans. She's like many of my girlfriends that are stealth. You know who you are as a child. And I'm tired of people validating Joe and validating his views because they're wrong. And unless you're trans and have experienced being trans as a child, you can't speak on it. And I don't like when people speak on experiences that they have not experienced. I don't know what it's like to be a man. I don't. I have no idea what men make a lot of the decisions they do or say the things they do or act the way they do, other than that they're indoctrinated to and to act a certain way by society. Men have to act a certain way. They can't cry. They have to be the strong one. They're the protector. They're the provider. They're the golden child. Men are more important than women. Be a man. Because in many people's views, being a man is about being unfilling, strong, an incel man, basically. Be a Trump, be a Joe Rogan. Because that's manly. When it's not. They're just a bunch of insecure assholes. Trying to make up for their insecurities. It's just pathetic. Just like so many men are violent. And they hate women. Men have been hating women for years. For years. Even if you read the Bible, it's basically a indoctrinating violence against women, especially the Old Testament. Our society has been taught that women are less than. My son is possibly gay or trans, but I'm perfectly okay with it and plan to fully support him no matter what. He's 8, his favorite color is pink, and he loves dolls and playing with the hair. He'll put a shirt on his head and pretend he has long hair too. It might be too early, but I'm open to allowing him to be whomever he is. And that's awesome because he might not even be trans. Because I've had friends that had very girly sons when they were younger. And when he grew up to be 16, 17, totally manly. Straight relationship. They're like a lot older now. They're like in their 30s. And they had done the same thing with their sons. Let them do whatever they wanted to do. Because they didn't grow up gay. Or grow up to be trans. And it's just another stereotype. Just another thing to say that, oh, it's just phobia. If you let your kid play with Barbie dolls. I've literally seen fathers beat their sons for playing with a Barbie. When a lot of times they don't even know what's a girl toy or a boy toy until parents let them know, that's a boy toy, this is a girl's toy. We're constantly indoctrinating people to believe a certain way. And it's hard to break free from that. It's hard to break free from the Bible. It's hard to break free from the indoctrination. It's hard for that. So I always have a lot of sympathy for cis people, specifically cis men, because I know that that's what the way they were raised. So, but with Joe Rogan, I think that Bernie supporters really need to stop trying to validate him. He got the endorsement. You need to stop arguing with black women, especially, and black people, especially. When they talk to you and tell you they have an issue with it, you need to listen. You don't need to preach to them. You don't need to post where he was walking in a protest forever ago with union workers. He even said himself was less about civil rights and more about the union workers, because he's always been about economic rights. He's always been about worker rights, which is fine. But be honest about it. Don't sit there and say that you were a liberator. And I don't know if it's even him that's saying that, because he's said in interviews that it was less about civil rights. He's said many times in interviews it's never been about civil rights. It's more about the Constitution, or about freedom, or about the unions and worker rights, etc., etc. It's his supporters and the people like Young Turks and Anna Kasparian and Chink. Chink is not as bad, but Anna Kasparian, that sit there and try to make him out to be something he's not, something he hasn't been. They paint this false narrative. And that's what annoys people, especially minorities. So I just wish that they would stop doing that. Because if Bernie does get the ticket, we don't need them to turn against Bernie. You're just giving them reasons to hate Bernie. That's really what you're doing. And I can tell you that when I admire, you know what I admire about black people the most? Is that they're fighters. And they will let you know, and they don't play that game, and they will, tear a city up if they need to make sure that they're heard, and to make sure that they're getting their rights. And sometimes I think the LGBT community needs to do that a little bit more. I really do. We need to take some lessons from the black community. Not that I'm promoting violence, but I'm just saying we need to be a little bit more aggressive than what we've been. That's all. But when you incite them and they're telling you this, that, and the other, you're being a racist. You are basically saying what we were saying in 2016. You are doing the exact same thing. We told you guys in 2016 to pick the lesser of two evils, because you guys felt that both Hillary and Trump were the same, which they're not. But you thought they were. Because they're not, because Hillary would have never put a conservative Supreme Court judge on the court. She would have never deregulated all these things they're doing to the climate right now. She would have never gotten out of I like him making his own decisions, like picking toys as an example. Oh, yeah, that's really important. I think so, Jade. I think so too. Yeah, I think so too. She would have never got out of the Paris Climate Agreement. We would have been working towards green jobs, green energy jobs. He's not doing that. Trump's not even worried about that. China's going to take that over now. China's probably light heads ahead of it on that. And if we do get Bernie in or somebody else in, we need to try to catch up, because that's the way of the future. Hillary wouldn't have done what he's done to the LGBT community. Hillary wouldn't have done a lot of the things that you guys are all saying that she would have done. She would not have done them. And that's basically what we were saying to you guys back in 2016. And now you're trying to validate Joe Rogan the same way. Oh, he's great because he'll bring in different voters, which will mostly be Trump supporters, and he can hopefully get them to change their views because it's Joe Rogan, and we need them to win, is what you're saying. So we need some bunch of right racist buttheads to win. So we should just shut up and accept that Joe Rogan supports Bernie. And we should ignore everything he's said and everything he's done, and everything's dandy. And we basically said the same thing to you guys in 2016 about Hillary. Because if Trump becomes president, this was what we've seen what happened. It is not normal that the president is headline news every single day. It's not normal. He should not be at the topic of Twitter every single day. He should not be trending for shit that he's done every single day. This never happened with Obama. Didn't happen with Bush. Didn't happen with, before the Bush time we didn't have Twitter, but in general we had MySpace, etc. Most people weren't bothered about though, because Bush wasn't doing stupid shit like that. He got us into the Iraq war and shit, but overall, he wasn't an annoyance, and he can make fun of himself. He would show up to the Kennedy Center honors. He would show up to be made fun of. He'd make fun of himself. He wouldn't try to divide. He would speak to everybody, which is what a president's supposed to do. Not saying Bush is great, because he's not. I don't support Bush at all. I'm still very mad at him for what he did to our troops, to our men and women that with probably kids at home that don't have a daddy or a mother anymore because of him. It makes me upset just thinking about it, because I come from a military family and I know what it's like when you lose somebody because of XYZ. Military's not good. I don't understand people that beat the drum. I should say war is not good. I shouldn't say military is not good. I should say war is not good. When you beat the drum for war, it causes a lot of mental anguish. You don't just lose body parts and lose lives. It sticks with you, stays with you. My dad is one of those people. It forever changes your life. We should not be applauding it. We should not be applauding to go over and kill a bunch of innocent people that had no hand in what their government usually does. I don't have any hand in what this stupid ass president's doing, nor do I support it. But he's in charge. He's the leader. And we're all hostage to whatever they want to do. And luckily, we haven't been attacked again on our own soil. Forgot to ask you before you finish. Do you think the Bolton leak will change any of the GOP senators' vote? I actually do. I think that because of who Bolton is, I really do think it will help change. I think that at least you'll get at least four of them, which you need four of them to get witnesses. Um, However, I think that what's going to happen is if they do get the witnesses, obviously Trump, the White House, is going to try to block that. So then it's going to go to court, and then it's going to, whatever court decides, it could be even after the elections. That's the problem. But we'll see. Because some of these guys are being abstinent to the end. They're not going to allow this to happen. So this could be going on forever. And that's why they're trying to do away with it so fast, because they know that the more that comes out, it's going to be reasons for witnesses and the reasons to show him guilty. And then the White House is going to fight back and try to block it. But yeah, I do think it's going to change. I think that Murkowski and Collins and Mitt Romney and a few others might sign on, but I think there will be at least four. And yeah, but Mitch McConnell is our fault. People like Mitch McConnell is our fault. We have no one else to blame but ourselves. The reason the government is the way it is because we don't vote. We don't vote. We only vote for presidents. Most of us set it out. Most of us don't even know who is running our city, our town hall. We don't pay attention to our local politicians. And that's how they get to stay in so long. Everyone's like, oh, we need term limits, which would help if they did have term limits. But what if you have a great senator? Or a great House of Representatives? But honestly, we just, as a country, need to get more political. We need to stop worrying about fucking Kim Kardashian and, I'm not saying that you can't watch that and you can't, but make some time to sit down and figure out your surrounding, where you live. Are they doing right by you? How is it affecting jobs in your area? We have to pay attention. We got to stop letting the corporations win. That's how they keep on winning. That's how we keep on getting the middle class eroded, because we're not paying attention to Congress. Congress has a lot of power. Congress is not lesser than the president. It's an equal branch. And that's what people don't understand. Congress is an equal branch to the presidency. And I think people forget that. So, yeah. We need to start voting. Register to vote. If you don't have IDs, you have a whole year to try to get that locked down. Contact somebody. Contact the Democratic offices. They will probably try to help you get your ID so you can be ready for voting day. Reach out. Don't give them a reason to block you from voting. And it should be much easier to get your birth certificate, because a lot of times it's because people don't have their birth certificate and they forget where they were. Some people don't forget who their mother's maiden name was, or their father's name is, or whatever. Because a lot of obviously a lot of people are they grow up and they're not with their their families or their brother or their parents, etc. So, we got to do better about making it happen where they can find their birth certificate, because it's if you don't have your mother's maiden name, they won't give it to you. And you know how I know that? It's because I lost my um, birth certificate. I had to go and get mine, and I forgot her maiden name. And who else would know but my dad? My dad, he from being in the army and my mom dying, he had a mental breakdown when she died, and he never got back to normal. And he's remembering now better now. Like years later, he's remembering things better now. But it took me a good hour on the phone with him to get to remember her maiden name, because I didn't remember it. And they're like, "Well, we can't give it to you unless you have her maiden name." Even though I had my ID. So, yeah, I mean, they need to make things easier, not harder. It should be a right to vote. I honestly think there should be a day where we have to vote. If you don't vote, it should be illegal. That's my opinion. Um, but yeah, so, but I think I'm going to end the show now. I think I'm political out. um, and I hope to see everyone next Monday. Next Monday, we will be talking about the union, because I'm part of the union. We will be talking about man versus woman. We will be talking about the problems why trans men have such, or trans men. We'll be talking about how trans women need to open up more to men. We will also be talking about the new thing where actually trans women and trans men are dating each other now, finding each other, which I think is kind of awesome, because before it was more, alienated. We kind of stuck to our own sides. And a few other topics that will come up probably within the week that I'll add. But I will see everyone then. Thanks for joining my show, and peace out. Bye.